All right, here we go. So today what I want to talk to you about is how we can classify shapes. But the first thing we need to do is we need to compare the shapes to see what they have similar and what they have different. And so what you see here is two shapes that I've identified, and we want to look at them and see how they're similar and how they're different. So I have a Venn diagram here. I'm going to grab my marker, and we're going to just kind of talk about those things. Now the first thing I like to look at when we're talking about shapes is I like to look at the lines and see if there are any parallel lines or any lines that are perpendicular. And we'll start there. So if we look at shape A, you notice that there are lines here at the top and at the bottom. These lines will never touch, and so they're parallel. So this one has one set of parallel lines. All right, and then over here, you see that these lines, if they continue to go, to almost form like a triangle, and therefore it is not parallel. And so far we have one set of parallel here. So for shape A, I have one set of parallel. If we look at shape B, we'll see that these two lines here are opposite of each other and they go in straight lines. And so those will be parallel. And then the shapes on the lines at the top and the bottom are also parallel as well. So this one has two sets of parallel lines. So when we talk about parallel lines, one set is what they have in common, because this one also has one set, but this one also has two sets as well. So one set of parallel, and this one has two sets of parallel. And what makes it different is that shape B has more sets of parallel lines. All right, after we get outside of the lines, now we'll start looking at perpendicular lines. And perpendicular lines are basically when two lines meet, like here and here, and they form a right angle. And 9 times out of 10, when you see shapes, you'll notice that they'll have a square in the corner of it, and that represents that it's a 90-degree angle or a right angle. And anytime you have a 90-degree angle or a right angle, that is created by a set of what we call perpendicular lines. So shape B has 4 sets of perpendicular lines, all 4 right angles. And shape A has none. So on this side, we're going to write 4 right angles slash perpendicular lines. And then we'll start to look for other things, like how many are opposite sides equal. So you notice that while on shape A, these opposite sides are parallel, but they're not equal. You notice that these, they're actually equal in length, right? So it has one set of opposite sides that are equal, but those ones that are opposite are not. They're not parallel. And then here, the parallel sides are actually not equal. On the shape B, you'll find that you have the opposite sides are equal here, and the opposite sides are equal here. So this one has one set of equal, one set of opposite parallel lines. I'm sorry, one set of opposite equal lines or equal or congruent lines. One set of opposite congruent. I'm going to abbreviate that. And then over here, it has 2 sets of opposite congruent. Now today I use a Venn diagram to kind of discuss the different attributes of the shapes. And usually the easier way to do this is to just kind of create a list, create a T-chart where you have shape A, shape B, and you put one in the middle for both. That's the easier way to do it, because you notice that we have so many attributes that are starting to come outside of the circle. So anytime you get ready to compare shapes, you got to ask yourself, is there anything similar or different about these shapes? Now, I want you to take a look at the Venn diagram and notice a very key component. So this shape here is a quadrilateral, and the shape B is a rectangle. And so when we ask questions like, is a rectangle a quadrilateral, or is a quadrilateral a rectangle, the way to figure that out is to look at these boxes here. You notice that in the quadrilateral section, there's nothing in the quadrilateral alone, but all of that information is either in both or in the rectangle section for shape B. And so you'll see that in the complete circle for shape B is all the characteristics of a rectangle. And so a quadrilateral is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a quadrilateral. And that's because none of the attributes for a rectangle belongs in the quadrilateral box alone. And that's why you'll find that. So the answer, if I ask that question, a quadrilateral is a rectangle, but a rectangle is a quadrilateral, but a quadrilateral is not a rectangle. All right, so stay tuned. I got a couple more shapes for you to think about. So let's go through. So Here I have two other shapes, shape C and shape D. I want you to take a moment and see if you can figure out what are the characteristics of these shapes. All right, I'm gonna let you work. I'm gonna do some work myself, and then we'll see if we have the same answers. I hope it's going well. I made a mistake, so I had to make some erasures. Here we go. All right, so again, the way I like to work is I like to always start with the sides. And so I'll go through that with you. And then I'll give you a couple others to think about. And then those others, you can pause the video and kind of work through them. All right, so let's take a look. So I have shape C and shape D. All right, I noted that shape C is a quadrilateral and shape D is a square. And I noted that for you. So if you look here, instead of using a Venn diagram, I use a modified T-chart. So it shows what we have for shape C, what we have for both, and what we have for shape D. All right, now, if you take a look closely, they're going through the same process, right? I looked at the lines. I noticed that there was nothing that stood out about those lines being opposite and parallel. Here or here, right? They're actually kind of slanted, and so they're not parallel. So there's nothing there. There's no squares inside of these shapes, which lets me know that they're not perpendicular. They don't have any right angles. And then looking at these, I noticed that the sides are not equal. They don't demonstrate an equal length, regardless of how I might rotate the board. They're not equal in length. So this tells me it just has 4 sides and 4 angles, and that makes it a quadrilateral. It has no additional attributes that defines it further. All right, and then for shape D, obviously opposite sides here are parallel, opposite sides here are parallel, which I wrote down here, opposite sides are parallel. And then I also looked at opposite sides being equal or congruent. So I wrote that down here as well, opposite sides are congruent. I wrote that it has 4 right angles. Now, an additional step for this square is not only are opposite sides congruent, but all sides are congruent. So that's a note that I might need to put down here. And I'll go ahead and write it now. All right, perfect. So now what I'd like for you to do is compare your responses. Did you get the same thing I got? Or perhaps did you get something different? Now, I'm gonna give you a couple more of these to just kind of try out. I'm gonna show them, and then I want you to pause the video, try to work them out and figure it out. Here we go. All right, here's shapes E and F. And if you would, pause the video and do the same work that we've done. Here's shapes G and H. Pause the video and do the same work that we've done. Here are shapes I and J. Pause the video and do the same work that we've done. And finally, here's shapes K and L. Pause the video and do the same work that we've done. All right, it's been really, really nice working with you today. I hope that this helped you out. I'll add an answer sheet for you so you can review the work that we've done today, so you can compare what the shape similarities are and what their differences are. All right, this is Mr. Barron. I miss you guys, and I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon.